And thank you to the IAB for inviting us and for all of you for sticking with us here. So um, we've been hearing a lot about this concept of supply chain. And typically in an IAB forum, we hear about supply chain in terms of the media and audience and the programmatic buying and trust in that supply chain. What we've been hearing about here now is a little bit more on the creative supply chain. And how do we make sure that the actual ad creative is handled properly and efficiently throughout that process and lines up with the media. I could start out and tell you about all the problems that there are, but I thought it would be better would be to actually talk about a success story at the beginning. So this story involves a food brand that was advertising during a major sporting event and wanted to kind of tell their message with a family theme to it. So they actually ran a video ad during the beginning of the sporting event to solicit input from customers and viewers on what family meant to them. Send us your social image pictures, your videos, and so forth about what family means to you. And so all this user-generated content came into them during the event, and they used that in real time to produce a second video ad that would actually air during the second part of that event. So this video ad was produced using all that user-generated content. It was edited, finished in post-production, all the processes we just heard about a moment ago, and uploaded for distribution. That ad was then processed, it was quality checked, distributed, and it actually launched during the second half of that event. This was a very dynamic, engaging experience. Is pretty widely touted as a good example of real creativity in the video medium. So I want to see a show of hands. We've been doing this a lot already. How many of you think this was a digital video execution of the ad? Show of hands. Okay, a few of you think this was digital. How many of you think this was a broadcast television execution? Okay, you guys already saw it. Yeah, so actually, this was the Kraft Family Greatly Super Bowl commercial. So during the first half of the Super Bowl, they showed the first ad, and then during the second half, they showed a second ad that was produced during the game and actually uploaded and distributed and aired. So it's pretty unique, and really, here's the moral of the story. Why did I tell this story? It's because execution actually matters. We don't hear a lot about it here at the IAB, but getting the ad to show up on the screen actually matters, and delivery matters. That's how it happens. So, while we spend a lot of time talking about media and targeting and data and so forth, don't forget about the creative. So, backing up for a second, we're really breaking it down. All advertising really does depend on two elements. One is identifying and reaching a target audience, and we hear about that all day long at every IAB event that we go to. But the other piece of it is presenting that audience with a message that actually moves them. So we think of this as the media and the creative. Neither one of them really does anything without the other. So the catch here in video advertising is it can be a very complicated process to actually deliver that message. Absolutely, media buying, targeting is complicated too, but video specifically as a medium is challenging in terms of the delivery of the message. And we've heard already quite a number of examples of that. There are various different codecs and bit rates, and we heard about the audio formats. There are all these different screen sizes from a tiny phone device all the way up to a jumbotron. Specific requirements exist from the various networks and stations and publishers and platforms that are actually executing the campaigns. We need quality control. We always hear about the end user's experience. We need to make sure that they're experiencing a good quality message. And not to be forgotten, in the world of video, there's often talent and rights agreements that need to be adhered to. There are performers, there's licensed music, there's film footage that actually is licensed and needs to be tracked along with it. And when ads run out of their agreements, bad things happen. So additionally, in the world of video, especially with large brands, the execution of these campaigns often spans across multiple different teams and agencies and technology vendors and partners. So we looked at some of our customer base, and we found that on average, there were 35 different teams working across these campaigns. These included media agencies and creative agencies and brand teams and post houses that we just heard examples of. In the case of some of the bigger brands, it could be as many as 153 different partners all working with this brand to execute across all the different screens and producing their creative. So coordination of these teams is really important too. And as we probably know, the volume of assets is not shrinking. As more and more media channels increase localization and personalization of content and more precise targeting, we're just getting more and more different types of unique creative being handled. So the number of assets is just continuing to increase as we go. So the ability to reach an audience across screens, it does continue to see these incredible strides. We hear every day about improvements in targeting and data and so forth. So the speed and the cost effectiveness and programmatic buying that we're seeing really is remarkable, and it's leveraging all the technology that we hear about and work with every day. But ironically, the ability to actually execute a video campaign across that cross-screen audience is absolutely mired in manual processes today. We heard examples of all these different file formats being manually handled. So the bottom line is it just produces a lot of unnecessary costs in the process, significant delays. Campaigns are often launching late, and opportunities for mistakes to be made, and even compliance issues around talent and rights can occur. So it doesn't have to be that way. So let's talk for a few minutes about just how does it happen today? How does video delivery occur kind of across the linear and the digital video world? In the world of linear television, it's actually a pretty streamlined process. Advertisers approving their ads, working with their agencies to work on the media plan and to do account management, manage the talent and rights associated with the creative, handle clearance with networks, traffic those ads. But ultimately, the content itself, the commercials that are going onto linear TV are uploaded into an ad cloud, like an Extreme Reach or one of our other companies that work in our space, where what happens is they get quality controlled, properly formatted for the different destinations that they're going to and delivered electronically. And ultimately, they then play out on linear TV in pretty much pristine, perfect quality. I mean, when was the last time you saw a pixelated ad run on ABC Network, right? And in that example I gave at the beginning of the Super Bowl ad is really, exemplifies the way that this works. The process of going from creative production to actually execution and display of the ad happens in hours and maybe even minutes sometimes. So contrast that with typical workflow around digital video, where advertisers tend to work more with a media agency specifically on driving the campaigns, buying the media, programmatic buying, and so forth. And then the media agency typically will then work with a creative agency, have to identify, okay, where are the ads that we need to run this campaign? And due to the not uncommon lack of standard identifiers, we heard Harold and the folks up here talking about ad ID, without a distinct uniform identifier, oftentimes the process of just figuring out what ad needs to run on the campaign can take several back and forth email chains of just locating the right creative. So then what the media agency does, as we heard a moment ago, they'll hand over a list of a format sheet. Oh, we need it in this format, in this MPEG, in this H.264, whatever, these screen sizes, and they'll pass that to the creative agency and say, get us the ads in this format. So then the creative agency will come to a distribution platform, like an Extreme Reach perhaps, and say, can you give us the commercials in these formats? And we say, okay, sounds good. We'll produce those ads, and we'll then put them on their Dropbox or their FTP site or whatever for the creative agency, who then takes them, passes them back to the media agency, again, through probably a different Dropbox or FTP site, and then the media agency is uploading them into DoubleClick and into the different platforms and into Facebook and so forth, and possibly FTPing them again to those locations. And finally, after all of that, the campaign can actually launch. And that's why it's not uncommon for campaigns to launch late. Sometimes it can take 2 or 3 weeks of workflow to get from where we ask for an ad to where it's actually running, compared to minutes or hours on television. So it's kind of counterintuitive that the technology of internet advertising is sort of mired in this process. And I'll tell another little anecdote. I saw a movie recently that many of you may know of. It's called The Parent Trap, a Disney movie from a while back. And it's about two twin girls that were separated at birth and raised by different parents. And when they met each other at camp, they actually hated each other and they fought all the time. But then they realized that they came from the same family and they shared a lot more in common. And ultimately their goal was to get their parents back together, right? And it made me think, linear TV, video execution, and digital video are like these two twin girls separated at birth. And they're basically identical when you really get down to it. It's a video ad that needs to play on a screen. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And so I thought it was kind of funny. It was a kind of a good analogy for what we see between kind of the different ways that video gets executed. So let's talk a little bit about how do we solve this. And the concept of an ad cloud is sort of maybe a lesser known piece of the ad technology stack that I think can help with addressing the problems that I just described. And in its essence, it is just a centralized, authoritative library of creative assets. And it's really based on the fundamental concepts that the internet is founded on. A URI, Uniform Resource Identifiers, an origin host, the origin of where a piece of content exists, edge caching so that it can be optimized for play out in a specific location or environment, content negotiation, making sure that the right format is available to the right consumer, and then things like REST APIs for accessing data. So these are fundamental things about how the internet works. And ironically, internet advertising is not leveraging some of them when it comes to dealing with content. So I think by using some of these concepts and applying the ad cloud method, we can help address some of the issues. So we just heard about the original production masters or the mezzanine files. So everything that lives in an ad cloud is sourced directly from post-production and lives in that cloud environment. So it's the original ad with an ad ID, uniquely identified in its master pristine format. And it's been quality checked to make sure that it adheres to that format. It's automatically formatted to the precise formats needed by any destination. So instead of the media agency having to manage lists of publisher profiles, all of those publisher profiles exist in the ad cloud. And you just ask for the ad for this location, and you ask for the ad for that location. The assets are CDN hosted in the cloud and available through URL or an API or directly in a VAST tag. And finally, you have a transparency control over the usage and being able to adhere to those talent and rights agreements. So in sort of an ad cloud workflow, the diagram I showed before is really just collapsed down into a single streamlined path where advertiser approves the ads, the creative agency and the media agency do their work to build the campaign and decide what ads should run where. That content is then uploaded from post-production, from the post houses themselves, directly into the ad cloud, CDN hosted, and then handed out as VAST tags or URIs to be plugged into any OTT environments or ad servers or you name it, walled gardens, whatever. And now across linear TV and digital, we're using a single source of content, a single source of truth when it comes to the creative asset, and it's playing out in a first-generation transcode into the right device in the right environment. It's really a unified model for execution. That's really the takeaway. An ad cloud unifies the approach for handling creative assets across any screen or medium. So again, just to summarize the key elements we're talking about, it's internet-based model. We're internet advertising, let's use the fundamental concepts of the internet to do our work. Content identification based on universal ad ID, we just heard the group talking about this, can't overstate how important it is that we at least are able to uniquely identify these assets and not have multiple different names. This is a huge problem in terms of even data and reporting and reconciliation if every platform and every ad server and every agency is calling the same ad by a different name. How do you bring together unified reporting? How do you handle frequency capping if everybody calls an ad a different name? So that's a fundamental element that is needed. And then finally, a standards-based delivery mechanism using VAST. We've heard about VAST 4.1. VAST 4.1 is exactly what we need right now. It's what VAST always should have been, frankly, in my opinion. It decouples the creative from verification, from interactivity. They all are able to operate independently in a VAST 4.1 tag, which allows each piece to be handled in the appropriate way. And we're no longer conflating the creative with the interactivity and trying to stuff it all into a VPAID unit. We can allow each piece to do its part very effectively and optimally. So, as if I haven't said enough about it, some of the benefits we see about using an ad cloud approach. Linear TV is going to enjoy the same quality and experience and delivery that they see today. Video on demand is really a perfect hybrid of linear TV and digital. It's executed in a more digital way in terms of buying, but the experience is 100% TV. And is constrained right now because of complex workflows and moving creative from the digital side down into the VOD systems, the MVPDs, where it actually needs to get executed, where it gets its own identification scheme. And using the ad cloud to help organize and coordinate the activity and the movement of the assets into these different systems can dramatically improve the execution efficiency on the VOD side. Similarly, OTT, you're benefiting from the high quality origin asset. We heard an example before. In one pod in OTT, you can see a great quality ad followed by a terrible quality ad just because there's no standardization, no sort of central authority that's managing the creative quality. And OTT, by its definition, is going to be on large screens. You do not want to be pulling a little mobile MP4 ad out of an ad server and showing it on an OTT screen. That's not going to create the customer experience that we're all looking for. Desktop and mobile benefits just simply by efficient campaign execution. No more late starts on campaigns just because agency teams and interns are trying to chase down creatives and get them transcoded into different formats. So we're just kind of moving away from this bespoke sourcing of creative and moving to just using a consistent methodology for that. And finally, social too can benefit just from quick access to assets, whether they're repurposed content, which much social content frankly is, or if it's custom built for social, being able to host it, identify it uniquely, and source it in a uniform way. So to summarize, the current mechanism for delivering video is highly fragmented and it's very, very inefficient. The execution of video campaigns today is pretty much mired in these manual processes. We can do a lot better, and we should do better. We're talking about technology here. We shouldn't be emailing spreadsheets. We shouldn't be FTPing files to each other. There's a better way to do it. And ad clouds, frankly, offer a simple solution. It's technology that exists today. It just requires sort of a better understanding that these capabilities exist, recognizing it has a place in the world of sort of a supply chain of creative flowing from production all the way through to display on a screen. So that's kind of how we see ad clouds helping in bringing together this ecosystem a little bit. It's not going to solve every problem. There's a lot of other problems that we have to solve as an industry. This is a really simple problem, frankly. It's an easy one. Let's knock it down and move on to more complicated things. So just to bring it back to the parent trap analogy, let's kind of bring the kids together and bring the family back together with video and figure out how we can do this more uniformly. So thank you very much. If you have any other questions, Extreme Reach, we'd love to talk to you about our ad cloud, AdBridge. I don't know if there are any questions before I wrap. All right. Thank you all for your attention. Have a good day.